Ever find something totally random, like digging through, I don't know, an old box of stuff at a flea market,
Yeah.
and it turns out to be something really special? Like
Okay.
maybe you find a vintage comic book worth a fortune or a first edition of your favorite author's book. It's those moments of unexpected discovery.
Yeah.
Those really get my pulse racing. And get this, in the world of HR data, we've got these things called anomalies, and they're like those hidden treasures just waiting to be found.
Right.
They might seem like minor glitches on the surface, but trust me, these anomalies can unlock some seriously valuable insights about your organization.
It's so true. It's like we often expect data to be this perfectly pristine thing, all neat and tidy. But the reality is data is messy,
Oh, tell me about it.
just like the real world, right?
Yeah.
And it's in those messy bits, those unexpected deviations that we often find the most valuable truth.
You're preaching to the choir. That's why I'm so excited to jump into this LinkedIn article today by Tamer Eltanzi
Okay.
called In Anomalies We Trust, Red Flags and Golden Nuggets. Tamer really knows their stuff when it comes to HR analytics,
For sure.
and they make a compelling case for why we should all be paying more attention to those outliers in our data. Okay, so before we go any further, let's make sure we're all on the same page. When we talk about anomalies in HR data, what exactly do we mean? We're not just talking about like a typo in a spreadsheet, right?
Well, Selena, it's bigger than that. Think of it more like spotting an unexpected pattern or a trend. Maybe there's a sudden spike in absenteeism in a specific department, or you notice a dip in productivity after rolling out a new policy. These blips on the radar, they might seem small, but they can be early indicators of larger issues, or maybe even point to some really good ideas.
Okay, I'm already starting to see how this is like detective work, right?
Yeah.
We're searching for clues in the data, trying to piece together the story of what's really going on. But be honest, data analysis can be pretty time-consuming.
It can.
Who really has the bandwidth to chase down every little blip and wiggle in the data?
You know, that's what's so fascinating about this. Anomalies can actually be huge time savers. They're like shortcuts to those aha moments that might otherwise take you weeks or even months of traditional analysis to uncover.
Wait, really? Tell me more.
So think about it this way. You could spend weeks, maybe even months, combing through spreadsheets, just like you said, trying to figure out why employee engagement has taken a nosedive. Or you could notice an anomaly, like a sudden surge of negative feedback on a particular project, and bam, you've got a starting point for a more focused investigation.
Okay, that's starting to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But Eltanzi doesn't stop there, right?
No.
They actually outline several ways these anomalies can be valuable.
Absolutely. They identify 4 key areas where anomalies can really shine.
Okay, lay it on me.
First, they can help you spot those pesky errors in your data.
Right, those little ones.
Exactly, those little inaccuracies that can throw everything off. Second, they can help uncover those hidden problems that might be brewing beneath the surface.
Third, and this is where it gets really interesting, anomalies can actually reveal unexpected opportunities for growth and improvement. And then finally, they can even provide valuable data points to actually support strategic decision-making.
Wow, so we're not just talking about damage control here. These anomalies can actually give us a competitive edge.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm intrigued, but I need some concrete examples. What are some real-world situations where these anomalies have made a tangible difference?
Oh, Tamer has some great ones in the article. For example, they talk about a company that was struggling with some weird discrepancies in their overtime hours.
Ooh, payroll issues. I think we've all been there.
Right.
Tell me more. Okay, you've got me on the edge of my seat. What happened with those overtime hours?
So this company, they were noticing some strange inconsistencies in their overtime payments. It seemed like employees were racking up more overtime than usual, but they couldn't quite figure out why.
Ugh, payroll headaches.
Yeah.
My sympathies. It's like trying to untangle a giant knot of yarn.
Exactly. And this is where those anomalies came in handy. By digging into the data, they discovered a fascinating pattern.
Oh, okay.
It turned out that their time clock system, the one employees used to punch in and out,
Right.
was malfunctioning.
No way. What was it doing?
Well, instead of properly logging those meal breaks and other non-working periods, the system was sometimes counting those breaks as overtime hours.
Wow, that's not just a data glitch. That's a budget buster.
You got it. And without looking for those anomalies, they might never have caught it until much later.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's like that little warning light on your car's dashboard. You could ignore it, but it might be signaling a much bigger problem under the hood.
So true. And in this case, that check engine light saved the company a whole lot of money and potential headaches.
Precisely. But Tamer highlights another important point. Not all anomalies are about faulty technology or system errors. Sometimes they reveal something much deeper human problems.
Like what?
Well, they mentioned another case study where a company uncovered a sudden and significant spike in absenteeism.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. It was concentrated in one specific team.
Ooh, that's interesting. I bet that raised some eyebrows.
You bet it did. Naturally, the company wanted to know what was going on, so they dug a little deeper, and guess what they discovered?
What? Don't leave me hanging.
The root cause of the absenteeism wasn't a flu bug or a bad batch of coffee. It was actually a toxic manager.
Wow, you're kidding. The data revealed a whole human drama playing out behind the scenes.
Exactly. And that's why context is so important when analyzing anomalies. What might seem like a minor blip in one context could be a major red flag in another.
So true. A company with a super flexible work-from-home policy probably wouldn't bat an eye at high remote work numbers, but that same data point at a manufacturing plant might signal a problem.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the bigger picture and the specific context of your organization.
Okay, so we've talked about anomalies as red flags, warning us of potential problems. But let's shift gears for a minute and talk about those golden nuggets that Tamer mentions. Are there any real-world examples where anomalies led to a positive outcome, maybe even a stroke of genius?
Oh, absolutely. Tamer talks about this retail company that noticed something unusual happening in one of their stores. Sales figures were up, customer satisfaction scores were through the roof, and employee morale was sky high.
Wow.
They were like, what's going on here? This is amazing.
Hold on, they were surprised by their own success. That's kind of refreshing, isn't it?
Right. Sometimes we get so caught up in looking for problems that we miss the wins.
Okay, so what was the secret sauce at this superstar store?
Well, they dug into the data, trying to figure out what made this store different from all the others, and they discovered that the employees at this particular location had taken it upon themselves to start a peer mentoring program.
No way. They took the initiative to create their own system for success. That's incredible.
It really is. And the best part? Management had no idea this was even happening. It was completely organic, grassroots initiative driven by the employees themselves.
That's amazing. It just goes to show that sometimes the best solutions come from the people on the front lines, the ones who are actually doing the work day in and day out.
Exactly. And the takeaway here is so important. Don't stifle those sparks of innovation. Just because something isn't part of your official playbook doesn't mean it's not valuable.
So we need to be open to those unexpected solutions, those happy accidents that emerge from the data. I love that. But I'm guessing it's not always that simple, right? What about those anomalies that seem promising but might not actually be the game changers we think they are?
That's a great point. Not every good idea scales perfectly, and what works in one context might fall flat in another. That's where careful analysis and a good dose of critical thinking come into play.
So it's not enough to just spot the anomaly, right?
Yeah.
We have to dig deeper, understand the context, and figure out if it's really a game changer or just a blip on the radar.
Exactly, and that's where our critical thinking caps really come in handy. It's about asking the right questions, challenging what we think we know, being open to different ways of looking at the data.
This all ties back to being more strategic with data, right? It's not just about putting out fires, but using these insights to make smarter decisions.
Absolutely, and that brings us to Tamer's final point about anomalies and making those strategic decisions. They share a really fascinating story about a manufacturing company that was really struggling to find and hire qualified engineers.
Oh no, that's a tough one, especially in today's job market. What was going wrong for them?
So their application rates had just totally tanked, and they could not figure out why.
Sounds like they were missing a piece of the puzzle. Did the anomalies come to the rescue?
They did. This company, they'd implemented this fancy new AI screening tool, thinking it would help them streamline their hiring, find the best candidates.
Right, AI and HR. Everyone's talking about it. So what was the issue?
Well, it turned out that their AI tool, the one they thought was going to be their secret weapon, was actually causing the problem.
Whoa, seriously? How so?
It was a classic case of too much of a good thing. Or maybe too rigid is a better way to put it. The AI was programmed with a very specific definition of a good engineer.
Oh, I see where this is going. They put the AI in a box, and it started putting all the candidates in boxes too.
Exactly. And it was screening out tons of potentially qualified people simply because they didn't fit this narrow criteria.
Yeah. So the very tool that was supposed to help them find the best talent was actually preventing them from seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly. And this is such a good example of how anomalies can challenge those assumptions we have and push us to think differently. Like in this case, the anomaly, that plummeting application rate, it forced the company to rethink what a good engineer even means.
It's a good reminder that sometimes those ideas we're clinging to, they can actually hold us back.
Absolutely. By paying attention to those anomalies, we can uncover those blind spots and make more informed decisions for our organizations.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. So for our listeners who are ready to apply this to their own work, what's the one thing you hope they'll remember about anomalies?
Don't dismiss those unexpected patterns in your data. Embrace those moments of, that's odd, because you might just find the key to solving a problem, uncovering some new opportunity, or even transforming how you approach HR altogether.
I love that. It's like Cameron said, in anomalies, we trust. They're not just glitches, they're valuable pieces of information just waiting to be discovered. So here's a thought-provoking question to ponder as you go about your day. What's a recent anomaly you've encountered in your work? Could it be more than just a coincidence? Could it be a sign of something bigger? Something that deserves a closer look? That's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the world of anomalies. But remember, the learning doesn't stop here. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep an eye out for those data surprises you never know what you might discover.